The big problem for Joe Biden is twofold. One, he is in fact Joe Biden, which means that he is gaff-tastic. Dude gaffs all the time. And he says things that are offensive all the time. And the media have not been paying attention to it in his first couple of days, really. But I have a feeling that the backlash to Joe Biden as inevitable frontrunner is going to grow. We see this with almost every race. There's an inevitable frontrunner going in, and it's pretty rare the inevitable frontrunner wins. And when they do, they end up being so wounded in the primaries that it's hard for them to go forward in the general. Hillary Clinton is the person who most comes to mind. Inevitable frontrunners have a rough time. George W. Bush in 2000 was an inevitable frontrunner, and John McCain gave him a lot of trouble. So I don't think this is going to be an uncontested primary where Joe Biden just runs away with it. I don't think that Joe Biden's even capable of hobbling away with it. The other problem for Joe Biden is not just that he is gaff-tastic, but that he has a history. Modern American politics favors people who do not have histories. It favors people who don't have anything to apologize for. This is the big problem for Joe Biden, is that Joe Biden has a long and checkered history. He keeps apologizing and apologizing and apologizing. Is he going to be able to win a campaign based simply on apologizing over and over and over? Since the beginning of the year, this has pretty much been his apology tour. In January, he apologized for supporting criminal sentencing laws that help drive down crime in the United States. He did so because those laws are now considered both passé and unwoke. People have said they're inherently racist. Never mind the fact that 1994 criminal sentencing reform actually resulted in the single greatest decline in American crime in history. It's actually something he should be proud of, but Biden has been running away of his own record. If you don't think Kamala Harris and Cory Booker are going to eat him alive on this, you're wrong. Which is why back in January, Biden was saying, I haven't always been right. I know we haven't always gotten things right, but I've always tried. He said that decisions about criminal justice reform trapped an entire generation. It was a big mistake when it was made. That's a pretty large change from 2016 when Biden told CNBC he wasn't ashamed at all for supporting criminal justice reform and bragged, quote, I drafted the bill. So if you don't think those will be campaign commercials directed against old Joe, you got another thing coming. And then, of course, weeks ago, as Biden prepped his presidential run, he approached Anita Hill. That's the woman who accused Justice Clarence Thomas of sexual harassment. Now, at the time, most Americans didn't believe Anita Hill in the same way most Americans did not believe Christine Blasey Ford and her meritless and baseless, or evidence-free at least, allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. Joe Biden didn't even believe Anita Hill at the time. He told Arlen Specter, quote, it was clear to me from the way she was answering the questions she was lying. Now, however, Biden has told Hill that he was sorry for what happened to you. That's because the left-wing agitprop over on HBO has suggested that Anita Hill is actually a martyr to the women's cause, despite the fact that she followed Justice Thomas from job to job, despite the fact that she had told, apparently, according to her friends, that she had told them that Justice Thomas was a good man and a legal scholar, and that she had left him all sorts of messages soliciting his well-being, seeing how he was doing and all of this over the years. Now, Joe Biden is going around apologizing to Anita Hill, but Anita Hill says, why would I accept your apology? You helped sink my case. Just 3 weeks ago, Biden issued another quasi-apology for his habitual invasion of women's personal space, his weird grabbing of faces and touching of hair. He said, the boundaries of protecting personal space have been reset. I get it. I get it. I hear what they're saying. I understand it. I'll be much more mindful. So here's the big problem for Joe Biden. All the things that make him attractive to moderates are all the things he's going to be apologizing for. This puts him between a rock and a hard place. If he had the courage not to apologize, he'd probably be better off. But the media are going to insist he apologize so that he is considered sufficiently woke. And that's why the New York Times has an entire piece today from Lucy Flores. Flores is the former state assemblywoman who was running for lieutenant governor of the state of Nevada and accused Joe Biden of smelling her hair. She has a huge piece in the New York Times today called Joe Biden and the Apologies That Weren't. And she says, the act of atoning may be difficult and complicated, but the concept is simple enough. You did something bad and it caused harm. A basic sense of decency urges you to take measures to, at worst, express how sorry you are, and at best, do something to right the wrong. On the other side of atonement, we find forgiveness. One does not happen without the other. History has shown us that both of these acts are difficult, and yet both are necessary to maintain a cooperative and functioning society. And then she talks about the Me Too movement and how women are still being put under the thumb. She says, powerful, rich, and famous men who acted with impunity, some for decades, were finally brought to some version of justice. And then there was Joe Biden, not a villain, not an unlikable person, not a sexual harasser or assaulter, but also, as Anita Hill recently found out, not exactly sorry either. I wrote about my own experience with Mr. Biden last month, about the time in 2014 he grabbed my shoulders, smelled my hair, kissed the back of my head, and soon after other women came forward about their own experiences with uninvited and unwanted intimate behavior in professional settings. Even though his defenders reduced the behavior to hugging, it was not, and shifted the focus to his intent. It was good intent, and made up false political motives to shift the attention to me. She endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2016. Most reasonable people understand that this kind of behavior with women violates not just their bodily autonomy, but also demonstrates a lack of basic understanding of social norms. Most people acknowledge men don't usually kiss, smell, rub noses with, place their hands on the thighs of, or touch foreheads with random women they don't know. Yet some men do, especially powerful men who are protected by privilege and a crew of self-interested enablers who don't want to lose their access to power by calling out the obvious. If you don't think Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren or Amy Klobuchar or Kirsten Gillibrand are going to hit Biden with this, you are wrong. He'll be hit with all of these things.